The NSE continuing to gain momentum. It seems risk taking globally has helped the local bourse. What are your thoughts on this rally that we're seeing?
Well, basically we've seen the shilling strengthening, thereby attracting foreigners into the market. And most of the volumes and transactions we are seeing is mainly foreign denominated. And we expect that will continue even if towards the end of the year as the central bank continues to prop up the shilling. And we've also seen the financials attracting interest because of the positive growth in profits that they've been reporting.
You talk about the earnings that we're seeing coming through from the bank side. We've also had some earnings out of East African Portland Cement. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see those, but just looking at those numbers, pretty impressive in terms of the fact that they've managed to turn their earnings per share into a positive point, also growing their sales for the quarter despite a loss on their yen-denominated loan. They made a loss of 119.06 million shillings for the period. Is this company on the right track now?
Well, I still don't think it's on the right track. They still need to do more of an internal reorganization, restructuring to actually position themselves strategically in the cement manufacturing space. And also in terms of just looking at this yen-denominated debt, how they can restructure it such that they don't take hit from the foreign exchange fluctuations, and from the weakening of the shilling, they're really taking a big hit. So I think they're still not yet out of the woods.
How would you compare it against its competitors like Bamburi Cement and Athi River Mining? Are those two eating into its market share?
Most definitely. I mean, Bamburi, ARM have gotten their house in order, and ARM being a local company and being able to understand the market better, and also not having that government interference, that makes it more, they're able to make commercial decisions much faster and be able to take more strategic look at opportunities than Portland.
Let's move on to the airline industry. Kenya Airways coming out with an update yesterday for second quarter. That stock receiving some nice attention, up 1.1% to 22 shillings 50 cents. Now, just looking at the type of growth that we're seeing, really expanding into Europe, growing its flights into Europe and also into North Africa, that helping to cushion against what we saw in the East African region. But this company really has been punished given this upcoming rights issue. Surely you'd be taking advantage of the fact that the stock is trading at such a discount, and given the growth numbers that we're seeing coming through from it.
Yeah, I think KQ has done well for itself, and what we've seen, the numbers that they released yesterday, they're in positive territory. Most of their growth, of course, coming in from Far East, Middle East, and Asian region. They've gotten some good growth in Bombay. They're also recording some good growth in the domestic space. In East African region, they're suffering a bit. Their numbers are not as high, but the main challenge for them remains raising the capital for the acquisition of more airplanes, and they're looking for quite a huge amount of money in the current economic environment. It's quite an uphill task.
Does the market have the appetite to support this big capital raising? As you say, given the current economic environment, raising this quantum of money is going to be quite a challenge.
Well, I think it's about signal. There needs to be a signaling effect, and KQ has managed to achieve that by getting KLM, Air France, and the government of Kenya to support the capital raise program. So I think once you get your key shareholders in, then then it will be easy to convince the other institutional and retail investors. But as I mentioned earlier, it's quite a challenge.
Steve, but the growth is no doubt there. If you just look at some of the stats, we've got African airlines only accounting to 2% of the total revenue of traffic between Africa and the rest of the world. African airline or aviation industry is the second fastest growing commercial aviation industry, second to China. So given the growth potential, there's this huge gap at this point in time. There's really a case for getting in at this rights offer.
Yeah, I think there's quite some opportunity for growth, but the airline business is also quite a sensitive one in terms of it's quite a high risk business, and at the same time, most airlines have been suffering supply constraints in terms of getting their aircrafts on time from the main manufacturers, that's Boeing and Airbus. They've always been delays, so you always find that they're not able to take advantage of the opportunities as at when they prevail. So those are some of the challenges that they are facing.
Yeah. Let's move on to the macro economy. We've got some inflation numbers out later today for October. Inflation sitting at 17.32% year on year in September. Are we likely to see another jump in inflation? And how's this going to inform the MPC decision next week, Tuesday?
Well, I think there'll be a slowdown. We saw the finance minister earlier in the week mentioning that there won't be as big a jump as expected, and from what we are seeing, the slowdown in increase of short-term rates, as evidenced by the 91-182-day T-bills, and also the strengthening of the shilling. We also don't see much jump in terms of inflation numbers, probably around 17%.
So you see it coming down?
Maybe slightly below, but not much.
Which would mean that the MPC might not need to hike rates as aggressively, or might not need to hike rates at all. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think they'll maintain it at where it is at 11%. I don't see them pushing it higher because they also don't want to stifle growth. Like I mentioned, currently liquidity is very tight, and the economy is basically experiencing a slowdown. Once you see an inverted yield curve, those are signals of a recession.